Rod, tell me a little bit about guilty pleasures. Is this a thing that you think about? Do you have guilty pleasures, or
You're not recording it, are you?
Well, I might be. Yes, I am.
Guilty pleasures. I'm going to steal a saying from someone I saw speak a while ago, and I'm sure he stole it from somewhere else as well. But I think I'm happiest when the things are going into or coming out of my body.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Look,
And
and who
most
isn't?
of them are guilt related, but not all.
No, and they're not. And we shouldn't feel guilt about a bunch of them. But there are things, we often talk about, bacon and ice cream and stuff like that. It's like, it's this delicious, but
Yes, I wasn't going to say drugs or bizarre orgies. I was going to say bacon and ice cream, preferably together.
I have no guilt about bizarre orgies. That's so most of the things that we think about in terms of guilty pleasures are often individual related. It's like, I shouldn't eat 8 tubs of ice cream. I shouldn't eat all of the pig. I shouldn't eat, those kinds of things.
What about the drive to go on a murder spree? I mean, that involves other people.
Well, there's the thing. So there's the one category of guilty pleasures that are about you. Your own individual stuff and how it affects you, and it doesn't really affect the rest of the world. But yes, there are the next category of guilty pleasures that are things that are bad for everyone. You started with go on a murder spree. Again,
Well,
that could be a
because we're not
guilty
recording.
pleasure. Again, I started far more benign. I thought, long hot showers, so it uses up all the water, and so the farmers can't grow anything.
I don't have guilt about that because the water doesn't go anywhere. It just goes out a tap and down a hole, and it gets used again. It goes straight to the cow pastures.
Okay, there you go. But at least you can feel guilty about, if you want to feel guilty, about the amount of heating you're using for the water or something like that. Okay, so
No, I'm
that's
not worried about that either. I got no guilt.
flights to Bali, anything like that.
Ugh,
No,
no, that's just embarrassment.
okay, so that's
No, I get it.
that's maybe an environmental thing. Well, okay, I got to say, I turned a pleasure of mine that I thought was purely guilt-free into something that I now think, oh, really? I went and ruined something for myself. I'm going to tell you about it. Welcome to the Wholesome Show, the science podcast for
the people who sit
up the back of.
the classroom.
There you go. In which we ask the dumb questions.
Yeah, that's it really. We just ask dumb questions. No, so you don't have to. I'm funning with you people. It's early in the morning. We're recording early, so this is very confusing.
Yeah, this is really weird, listener. So we're just making sure that you have content. So the Wholesome Show is a product of Good Day Studios. There's a new thing.
Yeah,
And brought to you by the Australian National Centre for the Public Awareness of Science.
it is. G'day Studios. They sound interesting. I look forward to hearing more about them in the weeks to come.
We will say more interesting things about them, but I think that's just a tiny thing right now. I'm Will Grant.
I'm Dr. Roderick Griffin Lamberts, and I'm just going to throw in a quick Vale Eddie Van Halen, who died on the day of our recording, and I'm not happy about it at all.
No.
Now I'll be chipper again.
Thank you, 2020.
Yeah, thanks 2020. You rock. Let Trump off COVID. Kill Eddie Van Halen.
You don't know
Fuck
that.
2020.
You don't know that. Anyway.
So far. Maybe next week we'll be having a different conversation about that. Or maybe in that other podcast that we enjoy so much, G'day Patriots.
We might indeed. In fact, this might come out after G'day Patriots, so there you go. So,
How confusing.
time, what even is it? Well, let's go back, cast your mind back 230 years or so to 1784. At the
I
time,
confess my memory's a little blurry, but I'll give it a go.
well, this is the genesis of an idea. At the time, Benjamin Franklin, kite flyer into storms, inventor of some stuff, was also the American envoy to Paris. And I'm sure a lot of the stuff that Benjamin Franklin wrote was wise and sensible or helpful. But he did allow himself a little bit of prissiness occasionally. And so he wrote this anonymous essay to the Journal of Paris. I think when he was there, they loved him because he was like this.
How do you know he wrote it if it's anonymous?
Well, I think he said later, yes, it was me.
It was me.
It was I.
My teeth made me do it.
He was. They loved him in Paris because he was like this rustic American that was all of his clothes were made out of rope or something like that, and he was like he was like Huckleberry Finn in Paris of Louis the 16th, and so it was a little bit weird. But
Mon Dieu, look at the bumpkin.
Indeed,
from the fields. He's like a peasant, you know.
So he saw something and he wrote to the Journal of Paris with this little anonymous note. He's like, Messieurs. Anyway, probably not in a French accent. You often entertain us. It was written in French, but I'm just giving the English translation. You often entertain us with accounts of new discoveries. Permit me to communicate to the public through your paper one that has lately been made by myself and which I conceive may be of great utility. I was the other evening in a grand company where the new lamp of Messrs. Quinquet and Long was introduced and much admired for its splendour, but a general inquiry was made whether the oil it consumed was not in proportion to the light it afforded. God, they wrote long sentences.
Oh, God, yeah.
In which there would be no saving in the use of it. No one present could satisfy us in the point, which all agreed ought to be known, it being a very desirable thing to lessen, if possible, the expense of lighting our apartments. There's the key phrase, which, when every other article of family expense was so much augmented.
Okay, I'm going to do the English translation again. This lamp seems cool because we need it, but it burns too much shit. We should maybe fix that.
Thank you. Yes, perfect. So yes, he's concerned with how much light, the economy of this. I was pleased to see this general concern for economy, for I love economy exceedingly. Which is a great sentence. I went home and to bed 3 or 4 hours after midnight with my head full of the subject. An accidental noise suddenly awakened me at 6 in the morning when I was surprised to find my room filled with light. And I imagined at first that a number of those lamps had been brought into it, but rubbing my eyes, I perceived the light came in at the windows. I got up and looked out to see what might be the occasion of it, when I saw the sun just rising above the horizon, from whence he poured his rays plentifully into my chamber, my domestic having negligently omitted the preceding evening to close the shutters.
Holy shit. Get to the point, man.
No sentence knowingly underwritten.
Ever.
So he goes on for about 10 paragraphs.
So this is, I was surprised because the curtains were open.
I was surprised because, look, there's daylight. Okay. The rest of the essay is him saying, hey, Parisians, you stay up until 3 o'clock in the morning and then you wake up at midday or 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock and then you whinge about how many candles you spend. So I got an idea for you. Why don't you wake up a little bit earlier? And he said, this is what we could do. We could tax window shutters to stop people from closing their windows. We could ration candles and we could wake up the public by ringing church bells and firing cannons at sunrise. His idea.
What a bloody American. Prissy doesn't even begin to come up. Oh, I do believe you are staying up too late and getting up too late. I don't like it. It's impious.
So this was the beginning. It was satirical, but this was the beginning of an idea of daylight savings time. So
I like that.
Yeah, I like it. And so I wanted to tell you a bit about the history of daylight savings time, and I'm going to ruin, because for me, daylight savings time, I've always thought this is the most wonderful thing in the world, and the science.
Yeah, but don't call it daylight savings, or Creog, the sound engineer, will reach through his ear pods and strangle you.
We are savings. Saving or savings? It doesn't matter.
I don't mind. It's not one of my buttons that gets pushed.
No, it's a weird one. It's actually, when I was reading for this article, for this episode, there was a long debate about whether it was daylight savings or daylight saving time, and people actually cared. So,
they would.
I don't know, listener. I'm going to choose what we call it in the title, if it's daylight saving and or daylight savings.
Just call it DST, yo.
I will. Maybe.
DST, yo.
George Vernon Hudson. He was born in London on Easter Saturday, 1867. He was the sixth child of, his mum and dad. And
that makes sense, yeah.
At the age of 14, he'd built up a collection of British insects and had published a paper in The Entomologist, which I assume is the scientific journal of insect collectors.
I thought you said incense, and I thought that's interesting. A collection of British incense. That would have been a small collection, but insects makes more sense.
As a 14-year-old, to have a collection of incense is kind of weird. Insects, at least I get it.
I'll be honest, I did.
You had your collection of insects?
I had quite incense.
Did you really?
Oh yeah, I discovered it when I was about 12. My folks had some buried in the sideboard, and I was like, "What's this? Oh my god!" And that was it.
So good.
Incense junkie.
I'm just imagining your 13-year-old boy room, covered with posters of dearly departed Eddie Van Halen and incense, and this is beautiful.
Yeah. And a picture of Heather Locklear.
Of course.
No one knows who that is anymore, but look her up.
I remember.
Yeah, you do.
So anyway, he published a paper in the Entomologist, but then in 1881, when he was probably that makes him 15, he moved to Nelson, New Zealand. He began working on a farm, and then he worked at the post office in Wellington, where eventually he became the chief clerk. But this was a time when you could be...
Hooray.
Yeah, you could... But
What
no,
a title.
No, I know, the chief clerk of the Wellington Post Office. But this is weird. He also, as chief clerk of the Wellington Post Office, went and did a whole bunch of Antarctic surveys. He did magnetic surveys of a whole bunch of islands down there. He rescued some castaways from the Dundonald, which had been shipwrecked on some islands, which I think is this...
What?
I know, as the...
So that's the origin of rain, hail, sleet, or shine. There's nowhere a postie won't go. He was just scoping for new places to put mailboxes because he gave a shit about the letters.
I kind of think it's something like that. I think there should be, if there was a movie made, you give him a better title. You call him the Postmaster General. And he's off.
Yeah, because the postman's been done, and that's just Kevin Costner.
Yeah, exactly. But he's off saving shipwrecked people. And this
Postmaster General. General.
But it was his insect collecting. It was his insect collecting that really was the thing that got him to follow through a little bit on Benjamin Franklin's original idea. So he used to go, after he'd done his shift work for the post office, his shipwreck collecting, his finding new islands to put post boxes on, he'd want to go insect collecting. But the problem for him, of course, he's like, there's not much after hours daylight. I need more daylight to be able to do this. So he presented a paper to the Wellington Philosophical Society proposing a 2-hour daylight saving shift. And this was written a little bit more clearly than Ben Franklin's long thing.
Thank God. Although, to be fair, that wouldn't be hard.
The author proposed to alter the time of the clock at the equinoxes so as to bring the working hours of the day within the period of daylight, and by utilising the early morning, so reduce the excessive use of artificial light, which at present prevails. All of these people, they always talk about saving on artificial light, which is interesting. Yes. But in his second sentence, also, in this way, the early morning daylight would be utilised, and a long period of daylight leisure would be made available in the evening for cricket, gardening, cycling, and other outdoor pursuits.
Thank God, cricket.
So... Well, this is New Zealand. New Zealand at the end of the 19th century. It's cricket, English. Gardening, cycling, and insect collecting.
It's England, yes. Much like we were.
Indeed. Look, they didn't worry about all the TV watching or something that they wanted to get done. They wanted to get outside and be wholesome and healthy. Which is, look, they probably had better lives than all of us, and so
medicine.
Yeah, that's true.
Whenever people talk wax about the past, they wax lyrical. I'm like, yeah, medicine. I kind of like having medicines and, surgical procedures.
Well, okay, can't we have the best of both worlds?
Yeah, I agree.
There you go. See?
I want to go back in time, but I want to take a modern hospital with me.
I read through, and the response he got from the Wellington Philosophical Society just it tickles me, because it's these old wankers that just responded, and for some reason they publish all the correspondence. Like, you can imagine academic seminar, and you've got Mr. Lamberts at the front says this, and they've written all that down. So I just thought, Mr. Travers said the clocks could be managed by having different hands. He did not think we were far enough advanced to adopt the plan advocated by the author. Mr. Harding said that the only practical part of Mr. Hudson's paper had long since been anticipated by Benjamin Franklin, one of whose essays denounced the extravagance of making up lost daylight by artificial light. Mr. Hudson's original suggestions were wholly unscientific and impracticable. If he really found any support to his views, they should unite and agitate for reform. Mr. Maskell said that
you want to change something?
Well, this next one, Mr. Maskell, said that the mere calling the hours different would not make any difference in time. It was out of the question to think of altering a system that had been in use for thousands of years and by experience be the best. The paper was not practical.
We've been doing it forever. It rocks.
Mr. Hawthorne did not see any difficulty. Mr. Hustwick was of the opinion that the reform spoken of would have to wait a little longer. Like, not even any argument at all.
Let's just hang on. And this is the Philosophical Society.
I like Mr. Richardson. He's the genius of the bunch. Mr. Richardson said that it would be a good thing if the plan could be applied to the young people.
I'm on teenage saving time.
Exactly. So under the age of 20.
What time is it? How old are you? 18? Oh, it's 7 o'clock. That's great.
I kind of wonder.
Depends on how old
I kind of wonder if Mr. Richardson may have been asleep during this, and he woke up at the end. He's like, "What? The young people can do it."
Yeah, make the youth do it. It'd be good for them, good for their moral fortitude.
So Hudson, the post office man, he was sorry to see the paper treated with ridicule. He intended it to be practical, and it was approved much.
This was a philosophical society.
Yeah, like,
But not philosophically in the way we would think of it.
Well, in the same way as the Royal Philosophical Society, and so it's one of those sciencey groups of intelligent people,
like natural philosophy and stuff, as opposed to Aristotle.
I think where they propose ideas to each other and then discuss them, and
yes, that makes more sense.
It was like a podcast, I guess.
Worse.
Way worse. So this was 1895. The next serious proposal came from another outdoorsman, but this was in England, William Willett. He was he independently conceived of daylight savings time in 1905. He hadn't heard of this New Zealand proposal. During a pre-breakfast ride, when he observed how many Londoners slept through a large part of the summer day. And again, there's so much judgment in this. It's like, look at those people wasting the daylight.
Yeah, if you're not awake and outside, you're obviously doing nothing with your life at all.
Absolutely. Wasting too much candles. That's what you're doing.
Yes.
You're using too many candles and sleeping through this.
It was a popular term of abuse at the time, you filthy candle waster.
So Willett
Look it up, you'll find nothing.
Well, still, I like the idea that someone's a filthy candle waster. Look at you with your piles of candles, just decadently.
Yeah, wax wanker. You don't care.
So he was an outdoorsman. He liked cycling. He was an avid golfer, and he got really annoyed when his golf round was cut short at dusk. So he said, what we could do is advance the clock during the summer months. And he published a proposal on this, and he had the decency to say, first and foremost, this is about sport. If more hour of sport is about healthy body, strength of mind, and so basically he proposed weirdly that we shift the clocks forward an hour and 20 minutes in summer.
Okay. Because that should make it easier.
I don't know what.
Add an hour and 20, which is 80 minutes. So 7:53 is actually 11:30 the day before.
Yeah. Like it breaks people's heads enough. Well, what he said that his method was, instead of going, so Hudson's method was just 2 hours, jump the whole lot. And Willett's method was, what we'll do is 4 Sundays in a row, we'll skip 20 minutes. So we'll just go forward 20 minutes 4 times in a row, which,
we sneak up on it.
Well, that was his theory. You can make it more gradual, and in fact, there's some logic to that, which is probably important here. I don't know, why not stop at 3 times 20 and get to an hour? It's easier than.
Why not go to 7?
The other thing he said is, so this would be really useful. The benefits afforded by parks and open spaces will be doubled, and the nation may someday have cause to be thankful that by this means opportunities for rifle practice will have been created, which under existing conditions cannot be contemplated. So.
Yes, so it's all about national security. I get it now.
It's just these arguments that they're making. Okay, some of them are it's save on candles, or you can spend. I can spend more time doing my favorite sport. At least they're being, or will be. National security will be better by rifle practice. Come on.
Yes, that's that's the difference, because none of this can be done if you don't change the clock.
Look, it's probably hard. It's probably hard
to... like my golf got cut off by dusk, whereas if dusk were at a different time, it wouldn't be. I'm thinking a dude who's playing golf, going for early morning rides, etc., can probably start his golf game an hour early as well.
But the far more immovable thing is the workday. The workday must finish at 5 o'clock and must start at 9 o'clock. And if that's broken, then...
the world's broken.
The world is...
We'll probably plummet into the sun.
He did connect it back to energy, like everyone else did. So after a while, he said, everyone, rich and poor alike, will find their ordinary expenditure on electric light, gas, oil, and candles considerably reduced for nearly 6 months in every year. So, okay.
Saving.
As we know, we live in a land right now of daylight savings. So at some point, they progressed from these original ideas to putting it in practice.
Yeah.
The first person to try was soon after Willett in 1908 in the UK. Robert Pearce took up the proposal. He was a Liberal Party member, but I think they were not very powerful at the time. I don't know. It didn't become law. He kept trying for a few years until Willett died in 1915. Sad. The first city in the world to enact daylight savings time was Port Arthur, Ontario, in Canada in 1908. It's
Really?
followed by another city in Canada. The first whole country to adopt daylight savings were the German Empire during.
Yeah, they were.
I know, like Kaiser Wilhelm during World War One. So they adopted it in 1916 as a way to conserve coal. So it's the candles argument. I assume that will help. Britain and most of its allies and European neutrals soon followed. Russia and the other countries waited until next year. And the US adopted daylight savings in 1918. They all adopted, ended World War One, but they abandoned it straight away afterwards. So as soon as the war ended, everyone said, all right, that was just for the war. We're going back. And so, you know, there's a pretty compelling example like in the US. They went through this. They had it in 1918, but straight away in 1919, it was kicked out again. Farmers didn't like it, as many people might have said. Congress repealed it in 1919. President Wilson at the time, he was an avid golfer, like Willett, and he tried to veto the repeal, but his second veto was overridden, which I love the idea that American politics got down that they fought that hard on the idea of daylight savings time.
You veto the veto of the veto.
Yeah. They over-vetoed him on getting rid of
I
daylight
didn't know you could veto a veto, but I suppose that's a conversation
I think
for
you
another
need
time.
to. I think. Well, this might be for our other podcast. Yes. Let's
It's
ask.
like 90% majority of all houses.
Oh, something like that.
Yeah, we'll ask the American.
So they had a big fight about this. Then a whole bunch. Wilson's successor, Warren Harding, didn't like daylight savings time. He called it a deception, and he just said people should get up and go to work earlier in summer. And so he forced all of the federal government employees to start going to work at 8 a.m. rather than 9 a.m. During the summer of 1922. So this is the idea of just go to work earlier.
It's no different. I mean, psychologically, it's different, but
Yeah, but it didn't work. Some businesses followed suit, many others didn't, and the experiment was not repeated. People didn't like it.
imagine that.
So the history from there, there's a whole history of people going back and forth on daylight savings time. We have it here, have it, and then don't have it for a while. People brought it in a lot during World War II. In America, they didn't standardize most time until 1966. So Australia, you've had some states having it for a while, then not having it, experimenting, all that kind of thing. But in America, in the mid-1980s, Clorox, I'm not sure, they make stuff. They're a company that makes like...
Bleach.
Yeah, bleach. Yeah, that's it. And 7-Eleven provided the primary funding for the Daylight Saving Time Coalition behind the they were the lobby group for daylight savings. 7-Eleven, I get. I'll come to that in a second.
They turn themselves into 812.
So there you go. They eventually it came in. Both senators from Idaho, Larry Craig and Mike Crapo at the time, voted for it based on the premise that fast food restaurants sell more French fries during daylight saving, which are made of Idaho potatoes. So
There you go.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Change the clocks, sell more spuds.
So here's the thing. This is what I wanted to know. Is any of this true? The arguments that they've made for and against daylight savings. Is it true? Does it promote more outdoor leisure activity? Is it good for physical and psychological health? Does it reduce traffic accidents, reduce crime? Does it save energy? Or does it cause a bunch of problems? And
I got a feeling.
I'm sad because as a kid in Queensland, we had it for a little while and then it disappeared again. And I always
That's
loved.
heartbreaking.
I've always loved when coming down to here to Canberra, having extra time in the afternoon. It's so nice, civilized.
Yeah.
But what does the actual evidence say? All right, let's look at...
The evidence says it is civilized. That's it. It's civilized. I bet no one's done that study.
They might have done.
Is it civilized? Yes.
Okay, energy. Let's look at energy first. 2017 meta-analysis. So people looked at like 44... There's a lot of studies on this. People have done a lot. It seems to be one of those things that... professional economists or public health people or whatever, they will look at the impact of this, but it also seems to be they get a bee in their bonnet about loving it or hating it, and they go, all right, I'm doing my day job on whatever normal science that I do, but I'm going to add in a whole line of daylight savings time research to work out if this is good or not.
Because I hate it.
Oh, so many people do. So many people really have strong emotional connection to it. So what do they find?
Weird.
So this meta-analysis of 44 studies. So they found electricity savings of 0.3% during the days when daylight savings applies. So it's saving a tiny bit of electricity, with the effect more the further you are away from the equator. Fair enough. So,
Yeah.
but this might mean that some countries conserve electricity, such as Canada and the United Kingdom, but other places like Mexico, southern United States, don't conserve electricity, and it actually might cost more. But when you take all forms of energy into account, so heating and driving as well as electricity, it actually comes out negative. So the total. So in the United States, research indicates that daylight savings time reduces residential lighting costs. Cool. But usually increases total energy consumption, especially when non-energy. So these are things like extra heating fuel on the cold mornings, colder, darker mornings. So you get up earlier when it's darker and you're heating your house more. Extra gasoline used to drive to shopping and sporting activities. Okay, maybe. I mean, that's got to be a little bit there. But so energy seems to be, despite Ben Franklin's idea, you actually might use more energy in a daylight savings time.
Thinking you spend more money on refrigeration because you got to make all the ice and stuff for the extra cocktails in the evening when you get home.
Well, of course.
So I think it's a refrigeration issue. There'll be a lot more booze. Alcohol consumption probably goes up because, you get home and you're like, hey, I got 4 hours in the daylight.
Do you know, I didn't actually find that. I didn't find, I'm disappointed in myself now. But of course, alcohol should go up.
We'll do that one.
There you go. That can be our hobby daylight savings time research. There you go.
Yes.
Economics. As you can guess, there are people that definitely claim to benefit from this, and there are the people that lobbied for it. So 7-Eleven, I said before, they are very keen on it. So the people that tend to benefit most from daylight savings time, retailers. So anyone that's shopping, something like that. Yep. Sporting goods, because people can go and play golf. They benefit a fair bit. So in 1984, Fortune magazine estimated that a 7-week extension of daylight savings time would yield an extra $30 million for 7-Eleven. And the National Golf Foundation said that it would increase golf revenues $200 to $300 million. So they love it. Like it makes a huge difference to golf in particular, probably more than any other sport. It just seems to be an after work. Can you fit in a round of golf?
Wow, no pressure.
But it does seem like 7-Eleven were the lobby group behind getting daylight savings in the US.
Interesting.
And so they believe that people are more likely to grab something on the way home. The theory, it's like if you're heading home and it's dark, you're like, no, I just got to get home. If you're heading home and it's still light, you'll be like, I'll pop in and grab some
margarita mix.
Margarita mix, yes,
exactly.
And whatever, some Idaho potatoes for my fries or whatever it is. So you're more, and it seems like that's legit. It seems like people actually do behave that way. We're more likely to stop off and grab something.
I suppose, if it's dark, you feel like the day's over and you just want to go and sequester yourself and hide from bears.
I do.
But if it's daylight, you want to look at butterflies while you have margaritas and play golf.
Which is again, far more civilized. So, I admit my failings
I'd rather
here.
Look at butterflies than hide from bears. That's true.
This is a nice civilized thing, but unfortunately, it might be dangerous as well. So farmers, as you said, don't like it. And it's not just because they're conservative and annoyed about stuff. The main reason seems to be a lot of, so for example, farmers that are harvesting grain or something like that, it's best harvested after the dew evaporates. But if the field hands arrive when it's slightly darker, then they're wasting time. So the farmers are paying for the labor, but there's no point having them there until it's ready to go. So there's also
start an hour later, but
but they're going to pay for that. That's wasting. I don't know
why. They work an hour longer at the other end of the day, don't they?
Yeah, but there's
I'm
no
not a
point
farmer. I'm not an expert. I mean, I don't know exactly how farming works, but I feel like an hour in a farm is like an hour in an office or an hour on the street.
Yeah, but see, their farmers, their labourers arriving 8 o'clock on the dot, but sometimes that's too early.
That's what time I arrive.
Exactly.
And I leave at 5. That's when I leave.
Also, cows seem to be sensitive to the timing of milk somehow. So
how do they know? Who gives a cow a watch?
Well, they don't.
Ridiculous.
That's the problem. That's the problem. They've noticed everyone else is changing, but they're like, what happened to this hour? Maybe it was
My
the other.
dogs do it. My dogs bloody love it. It means they get me up earlier and they get their dinner earlier. They think it's fantastic. They
Yeah,
bullshit me all the time
my
around
dog,
daylight
like in the
saving.
last week before daylight savings coming on, she's like, "Get up, get up, get up," and I'm like, "But now I get up before her," and she's like, "This is amazing." So
Oh, it started for me for one day, and then they went, "I know what's going on here. We can beat him."
got it. We can
And then
beat
they beat
him.
me again. Took 2 days. Jerks.
The other businesses that don't like it, of course, well, drive-in movie theaters sucks for them. It's too hard to watch a movie in the light. But also,
What is it? What is
Also-
he doing? I can't quite tell.
all other those other theaters don't do as well because people are out enjoying themselves in the sun, having picnics and margaritas rather than going watch a movie. Also, primetime television. People watch less TV, but whatever.
So it's evil.
Yeah,
I'm told cinemas are going to be killed by COVID anyway. So that's
cinemas
fixed.
are dead. Cinemas are dead.
Yeah, TV doesn't matter anymore because we got streaming, so that's fixed.
Okay. What else we got? So the economic picture, it's a little bit mixed. Some people benefit, some people don't. Energy seems to be a tiny bit negative. Crime. What are you guessing for crime?
More.
No, crime's a benefit. Less crime. Less crime.
That was my second guess.
The main thing. So it seems like there's Doliak and Sanders, doing some research on this, found there was a 7% decrease in robberies following the shift to daylight savings time.
Because you can be seen.
Because you can be seen. So basically, any sorts of robberies and sexual assault, probably not white collar crime. I don't know if it affects white collar crime.
Oh shit! It's daylight. I can't embezzle.
Well, maybe they've got their margaritas. They're spending more time with their margaritas, and they're not
I can't
embezzling.
embezzle in the dark with my in the daylight with my margarita in my hand.
But your cat burgling and your those sorts of crimes that like the dark, it's a little bit harder
Good
for them.
cat burglars, they do it in the daylight because no one expects it.
Yeah, but how can you wear your black cat burglar suit in the daylight? You'd have to wear
Don't let me show you.
you'd have to have a white cat burglar suit for the daytime,
a good idea.
or a nude.
I'm thinking more like a dusty pale blue.
So it is good for crime. It does get rid of crime. There was someone that estimated there was an extension to daylight savings that I mentioned before for a couple of weeks in the US, resulted in a $59 million annual social saving cost from avoided robberies. So it's actually pretty substantial impact. But the other way around, there's another criminal impact. Well, I don't know. I don't know if this is criminal. This is in the criminal justice system. The other side, judges get really cranky. So,
Oh God!
I know this is now some of these impacts are overall daylight savings. So for the whole couple of months that it's in, but some of the worst impacts are just about the transition. The transition really seems to break society a fair bit. And so, who's this? These guys looked at judge sentencing, and the title is "Sleepy Punishers Are Harsh Punishers: Daylight Saving Time and Legal Sentences." And this was published in Psychological Science. They found that the Monday after daylight savings kicked in, judges tend to give sentences that are about 5% longer than they would on the Monday previous.
Like executions triple in the US. Like, what? It was a parking fine.
It seems.
I'm tired.
Likely.
Fuck you, die.
So this is the thing that actually is the potentially biggest and worst aspect of daylight savings. Is not the long-term difference between summer and winter, because there clearly seems to be close mix. Energy a tiny bit down, crime down, but stuff like that. But the transition really seems to break us. And so judges get 5% harsher. We tend to make way more. So this was in the Journal of Applied Psychology. They used National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health database to look at workplace health and safety.
Yeah.
Straight away after the transition, way more workplace injuries. Another one. Oh, this gets me. I don't know what journal this was in. I didn't write it down.
The excellent journal.
Well, straight after the transition, a dramatic increase in cyber loafing behaviour. Cyber loafing being sitting around reading the internet while you're at work, which is bad, obviously.
No, that's what you do at work. What are they talking about? I do wonder about this because I see this report every year. You see it in the newspapers too. There's X% more accidents and Y% more clumsiness or whatever, in car crashes. I'm intrigued by that. I'm intrigued that 1 hour makes that much difference.
It
But
seems
the
to. It
cyber
seems
loafing,
to.
I don't get. I suppose because you're tired, you kind of go, oh, I'll start up properly in a moment, but first I'm going to look at Facebook.
Well, I'll give you the last couple of stats, and then I think the reasoning behind this is worth thinking about.
Yeah.
So this another one looked at the financial markets. Supposedly, financial markets around the world, the day after daylight savings kicks in, they typically have a bit of a crash. There's large negative returns. They all make bad calls.
A bit of a crash. We had a slight crash on the markets today.
Mini crash.
Just a couple of financial suicides. Yeah. Okay.
Heart attacks. Heart attacks seem to go up straight away after the spring
Yeah.
shift. It's probably
That's
because
because we measure them.
If we didn't
measure
measure
them
them,
too much. Yeah.
if we report them as something else, then they won't be heart attacks.
Yeah. You call it daylight syndrome disease.
So their heart attacks go up by 10% in the couple of
10.
days after the shift to daylight savings. So we shifted 4 days ago or so. We're still in the period where heart attacks are up by a few percent.
I feel nervous now.
Strokes are up by, I know we didn't have the numbers there, but strokes are definitely up as well. There is one study that found that male suicide rates appear to rise in the couple of weeks after the spring transitions.
After.
There's uncertain evidence there, but
You'd feel like it'd be the other way. I mean, if
I
you're
would've
talking
thought-
psychologically,
I would have
I've
thought.
lost the daylight, everything's dark, it
No,
already
this,
was.
this is the good transition. This is the spring transition where you're heading to more hours of after.
But you lose the hour, or rather, as I like to think about it, you bank the hour.
Yeah, you get sleep
You
deprivation.
save it, if you will.
So here's the big one. So Austin Smith, there's a bunch of studies that looked at the relationship between daylight savings time, the transition, and automobile crashes. I don't know. I read that from a journal. Automobile crash, motor car crashes.
You're going for an automobile drive later today, aren't you?
So typically, it seems like the transition to daylight. So there's a couple of things going on. There's overall daylight savings time crashes because people are driving more in the daylight versus more in the dark in winter, and daylight is safer. So there does seem, but that's just the difference between summer and winter, really.
Right.
But the transition itself seems to cause 30 deaths every year in the US from additional car crashes. Something like a 5 to 6% death increases.
5 to 6.
Yeah, really. In the couple of days after the transition. So that means
Is 30 only 5 to 6% in the US? I would have thought they'd be dying in them billions in the US.
40,000 people or so die every year on American roads.
Yeah,
every day.
I'm surprised it's not more, but yes, still.
Yeah, 40,000 divided by 36. So that means 100 people every day, roughly, dying on American roads. And so you get, it's 30 extra. There you
Look, one extra is bad and all that sort of stuff if you are the person or know the person. But still.
Absolutely. Well, it means that 2 or 3 people here in Australia will die because of this transition to daylight savings that we've just had.
We'll probably already have.
Well, yeah, probably. So there you go.
Duh.
There you go. A lot of this seems to be that whilst the overall effect is fairly moderate, but there is clearly some health benefits. There's people that are, the sporting health benefits, those kinds of things, and the margarita benefits and the socializing.
Yes.
Those things are all good. There does seem to be that the transition breaks our mind collectively.
I know why you crash. I mean, I nearly do it every year too, because you got to change the clock in your car and you don't notice that until you're honking down a highway and you think, well, if I don't do it now, I'll forget.
Exactly.
So you got to look down and change the clock.
Change the clock while you're driving 100 k's an hour.
Yeah, it's clock deaths. It's actual interaction with interface deaths. That's what it is.
I was thrown out this year because I knew it was coming, but normally I check a couple of weeks before. I'm like, I'm looking forward to it. But I woke up in the morning and I was like, all right, there you go. Oh, that's interesting. Had a bit of a sleep in. I look out and there's the clocks out there. I was like, what? Oh my God, the clocks. Oh, what?
Actually, no, it got me too. I only found it on the day. I'm like, really? That's today? That's cool.
Yeah.
So I'm the same. Normally I know it's coming. I thought it was like late October, but I was wrong.
Yeah. So yeah, it does seem that the sleep deprivation, and here's the thing, we all lose maybe 40 minutes of sleep during that. We tend to sleep in a bit, but we lose 40 minutes. And if you multiply 40 minutes across the 1.5 billion people that live in a daylight savings country, that has huge impacts. It has huge impacts.
But it doesn't, because like that what does that number mean? the country lost 8 billion minutes of sleep.
And
like,
people,
what?
it lost
what
people.
does that mean?
It lost people. You got cranky
No,
judges.
but I mean,
and
like the cumulative, the total number of sleep minutes lost this night is X. Like,
well, this
great,
is the
great.
thing.
The length of all the people's shoelaces in the country is Y. Like, I don't care. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, but that's why I tried to put it to you in terms of deaths and in terms of heart
deaths I
attacks
get.
and in terms of suicides. So yeah, we all lose 40 minutes of sleep. But then that converts into, here in Australia, 2 or 3 deaths on the road, probably an extra couple of heart attacks, probably an extra couple of strokes, things like that. You know, around the world, we get all of these things from the transition. So that's the question then. Is it worth it? Is the margarita and insect collecting hour worth it for this number of deaths? So this is my guilty pleasure that is a little bit ruined. I thought that daylight savings was an unmitigated good. I thought, this is just being civilized. This is nice.
Aren't you a happy chap? No, I never thought it was an unmitigated good. I know it pisses some people off. I used to love it when I was younger, like couldn't wait for it. And now I'm like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, okay.
I kind of don't mind anymore, but I think it's also because the last few years in winter, I'm not in Australia until this year.
Yeah, fair enough.
And so my whole notion of seasons and daylight has shifted a bit. And when you're in Europe in summer, like in Italy and around that area in summer, the days are infinity anyway. Like I don't care what time you call it; they don't care either.
Yeah, fair enough.
It seems to make a bit more
when you're a
difference
tourist, it
down
doesn't
here.
really. When you're a tourist, it doesn't really matter. I think.
But also, I mean, the days are very long. I mean, you know this when you go to other parts of the world or close to the equators and stuff like that. But like down here in Australia, it does make a big difference. You do notice
there's
that
no.
hour.
I mean, you're not going to make much difference if it's between 10 o'clock sunset and 11 o'clock sunset. Like, who cares?
No.
Like that's.
No, already been in bed for 4 hours anyway, like a normal person.
But why did you love it? Why did you love it when you were younger?
Because I could be outside longer.
There you go.
Longer play. It felt like it felt more luxurious. It was definitely a pleasure because the extra daylight after school and then earlier in the piece work when, the society forced me to get up.
You could sit around burning your incense outside for far longer.
Yeah, no, but it's true. Like it did feel luxurious. The extra daylight feels luxurious and it feels like you're getting freebies.
There you go.
That's how it felt to me.
It feels like freebies, but maybe not as freebie as you might think. So I'm not anti daylight savings time, but it's not an unmitigated good.
Now you feel worse about it. Yay, something else that science has made you feel worse about.
Thanks, science.
Yeah. Now I'm worried about daylight saving too.
Well, maybe I regret that now. Maybe I'm just going to ignore everything I just said and still love daylight savings.
I already forgot what you said. It's fine. You'll be fine. You'll forget. You're going on holiday. You'll be fine.
The Wholesome Show is me, Will Grant, him, Rod Lamberts. Produced by Good Day Studios and proudly supported by the Australian National Centre for the Public Awareness of Science. There.